Welcome to Some Joyful Noises, a music podcast with no rhyme, rhythm, or reason. This show is a proud member of the Anazal Podcast Network. The reason we do this show is for community, not because any of us are music experts, but rather because we believe that music helps shape community, and that's something that's really important to all of us at the Anazal Podcast Network. I'm Joshua Noel. I am the producer of this show. I say producer and not host because this show has no host. It has no schedule. It has no format. You are just as much the host as I am. If you would like to find out how you could lead your own episode of Some Joyful Noises, then listen to the end of the show for an invitation to lead your own conversation on this podcast. We hope you enjoy this show with no rhyme, no rhythm, and no reason. This is the launch week for our podcast, Some Joyful Noises. The two most important things for a successful podcast is one, reliability and consistency. And then number two is the best first foot forward that you can put. Since this show has no plan and no schedule, we're going to drop the ball on consistency. That means it's extra important that we have a good first foot forward, and we're asking for your help. There's a few things you can do that'll take less than 5 minutes and cost you absolutely nothing that can help our show put our first foot forward. So here's 5 things that will take you less than 5 minutes to do for no cost that would help us. Number 1, share the show. Find a friend, share the show with someone. Number 2, rate and review our show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Number 3, go to podchaser.com and rate and review the show there. Number 4, join our Facebook group, Some Joyful Noises. And then, of course, number 5 is just enjoy the show. Be sure to subscribe, and if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can go to the menu of our podcast to select automatic download. That'll help increase our downloads and tell the algorithms that this show's really important. All of these are also going to be down below in the description in case you forget any. Thank you all again so much, and we hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Some Joyful Noises. This is an Anazal podcast. It's our only experimental podcast. It's our experimental music podcast. It's our dumping grounds for anyone in the Anazal ministry group. If we have a music idea, we're just going to put it here. So we're not going to have the same format. We're not going to have the same host. There's no schedule. We just kind of dump stuff here. So this is a music podcast with no rhyme, no rhythm, and no reason whatsoever. We're just staying noisy. So, first things first, let's talk about why music is important. Why do we have a thing just for music when we don't have our own music podcast, really, because we don't have a host? It's because music is important. I might not know a lot about music myself, but I do realize it's what forms community. Worship music has formed the church for thousands of years, and it still does. And I think it's important that we realize how music's not only forming our church communities, but also our community as a culture, as Americans, as people in the world today. So, with that said, we need to study and think about the music of the day. And even though, really, I don't think anyone in the Anazal Podcast Network is a music expert, we still recognize the importance of it. So we're having a channel dedicated to that, but also so that you guys, if you are experts, hey, jump on. If you're not experts, you just have thoughts about music and feelings, you can lead your own conversation on this. There is no host. You are just as much the host as I am. So check it out. But with that said, first thing first, let me say, if you don't mind, subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts at. Rate and review. Share this episode. This is part of our launch, so sharing it right now actually helps more than any other time. So share, do those rates, do those reviews. If you're doing it October 5th, October 8th, whenever this comes out, we're doing a double launch. So both of those days are days that episodes that are launching will be released. If you share it on those days specifically, and if you rate and review, especially on Apple Podcast or Podchaser, it's really going to help get people's attention. Oh, hey, wait, this is a new podcast. What's this about? So help us out there. We really appreciate it. Today, I'm going to be discussing a very special album to me. It is Judah and the Lion's newest album, The Process. And recently, they just dropped the deluxe version of the album. So that's what I'll be reviewing. We're going to be going through that. Let me just say for myself, I was not allowed to listen to music that was not Christian growing up. So a lot of music is still new to me. I'm still discovering 90s music, and I'm a 90s baby. So yeah, it's weird. My relationship with music is pretty strange. I am someone with a Bible degree. I'm someone who studied theology deeply and closely and cares about that stuff. So when I look at songs and I look at music, I do tend to focus on the lyrics and kind of analyze it for that. Judah the Lion sounds like either a very, like a really Judeo-Christian name. My understanding is that the band members are Christian, but their music is not Christian music. So go in with that. But also why I want to review it is even though it's not like, hey, go find Jesus. That's not like what this music is. It still shows like personally what they went through. The process is about the divorce that the lead singer's gone through and how he handles it. And the way he handles it and the way he's approaching these really deep themes is very Christian. So even though it's not a Christian song, Christian music, really, it's still very Christian in my opinion. So Judah Akers, he's joined by Nate Zurich and Brian McDonald, Spencer Cross. Judah Akers is the guy that I know. So he's like the lead singer. He's the one, from my understanding, who went through the divorce, these lyrics are kind of going through his experience. So I found this album a lot of fun, really deep, very moving. It's something that I think is important for us to delve into and think deeply about. So I said they are Christians. I do want to go ahead and give everyone the heads up, especially since I'm going to be sampling some of the music throughout this episode. I'm using their YouTube page. We'll see how well it works. But this is Judah and the Lion's YouTube page where we're going to be sampling music from. So if you want to listen to the full songs, you can do that over there, or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your music from. They do have some pretty strong language in some of these songs. So that's a thing. So divorce, breakup, a lot of people are like, oh, you should never get divorced, but it does happen. And he goes through his experience and he is clear in the songs. Like he did not want this divorce, but man, the stuff that goes through, it's, cheating, it's who's at fault in a divorce. It's, anger, love, all this stuff. And he goes through the stages of grief, the 5 stages of grief. The song kind of does it linearly. So, it starts at denial and goes through, but you'll even see in each of the different sections. So each one will have a song that is denial is a song, sort of. And then it'll have songs that are like in that section, and then it'll go through anger and songs in that section. But even in the very beginning, when he has denial, he even says, hey, this stuff doesn't happen sequentially, which is a big thing in psychology, right? That it doesn't happen like, oh, first you go through denial. Okay, check that off. And then next you do this. It's like, no, sometimes you're going to flip from anger to depression to denial, back to anger, back to, you might be all over the place. And that's just part of the process, and it's okay. That's the name of the album, The Process. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Christianity and psychology. So there's a lot there that's awful. The history of Christianity and psychology has not been great. A lot of the times you get that, oh, no, it's not ADHD, it's the devil, or, oh, it's not really this disease, it's, this kind of spiritual influence or whatever. And a lot of psychology is like, well, wait a minute, there's no such thing as demon influence. That's probably just this condition. So you have Christians explaining away real mental conditions and people not getting mental health because of it. And on the flip side, you also have psychologists who have said who've tried to invalidate a lot of spiritual experiences. I don't think either one's good. I think it's good to have both in one hand. I will go ahead and recommend there is a book, 5 Views of Christianity and Psychology. I think it's a really good book for you to check out. It goes over the different ones of biblical counseling, integration, transformational psychology, levels of explanation, and Christian psychology. So you go from everything of psychology explains one level, Christianity explains some levels. You go through there's a way to look at psychology from a Christian lens of how God created us. You go through them. We don't need psychology. Let's just stick to the Bible. What does the Bible say about the human condition, and counsel people from that? So you get 5 different views there. It's a really well-rounded book where each person gives a stance and everyone is able to respond to those stances. So you have 5 different views represented by 5 different people and responses to each stance. I think for me, it's been really helpful in my own study. I'm not a Christian psychologist or anything like that, but it helped me understand what I feel like I need to understand about that in order to talk about those kind of things at all. I'm not an expert. I'm just a dummy. If you're listening on Dummy for Theology, you get that. If you're not, hey, you can check out my other show, Dummy for Theology. This is cross-posted over there. And, it's just part of the thing. It's I don't think that I'm the smartest person in the room, but I do try to study and be diligent because I believe that's one form of worshiping God, is to just study the things of God. And I think psychology is one thing of God. God created us and our minds, and it's something that we should delve into the best that we can. That's all I'm going to say about that. I just wanted to recommend that book and let you guys know that I understand there is a history there, and Christians have not handled this well all the time. I have a lot of my own mental health issues with ADHD, trauma, PTSD, that kind of stuff. So I relate. I understand. I'm sorry. Not sure if I should apologize, for all Christianity, but I feel like I should sometimes. Overall, my thoughts on this album, I think it's phenomenal. It's a really fun, it's deep and you can feel his pain, but it's also a lot of fun. There's a lot of really upbeat tones, upbeat vibes. Judah and the Lion is known for their really unique blending of folk music, pop music, and rock and roll kind of music, rock music, whatever. I don't know what you call that. Dummy, remember. So they're known for that blending, but in this album, they also have for me, it kind of feels like they have a little bit of like a techno vibe to some of this. Some of the sounds come in that I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. It's very unique to themselves, and they're already a pretty unique band. But I can't get over how Christian he is. When he goes through this process, by the end, you're expecting acceptance is like he just kind of comes to terms with it. And he's like, no, I love her. I wish the best for her. Also, I want to say throughout this album, one thing that's interesting to me. So, I'm going to do a lot of comparisons to Taylor Swift stuff, especially Taylor Swift's newest album, The Department of Tortured Poets, the Tortured Poet Department, whatever it's called. Dummy, remember. So in that album, Taylor Swift gets criticized pretty heavily because she uses some really strong Christian religious symbolism, even though she's not really talking about Christian or spiritual things when she's using those symbolism, in my opinion. This album, though, they're very subtle with the references, but they are being really Christian about it. When he talks about being on his knees, a couple of different times throughout these songs, it's if you're paying attention, it's like, oh wait, he's praying. He's praying for her even at one point, but he doesn't use the word praying. He doesn't say, "Oh, Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior," but he does invoke this term, "Dark Night of the Soul," which is a nod at a really deep Christian poem we're going to talk about later on. So you have all this through here. He even talks about soul. He does mention his own soul, but a lot of songs talk about soul without it being religious. So it's interesting how he definitely is being very Christian in here, even without using that language. And that comparison to me is really interesting as well. So let's go through some of these songs. I'm just going to read through the songs. I'm going to stop where I want. I'm going to do kind of section by section. So the music is broken up by stage of grief. So that's how we're going to look at this. We're going to go each stage and kind of see what songs are in there. First stage, we have Denial. So we have Denial, and I mentioned, he kind of talks about how it's not all sequential from there. He has Heartbreak Syndrome, really fun songs. I like that a lot. FLA to me, I like the music, but lyrically doesn't do a lot for me, and it didn't really catch on. But in the deluxe version, he has New Tattoo. And I did really enjoy that song. For me, it's got the most rock vibe to it. At the end, he has a whole guitar solo, so that's really fun. Kind of, pulling the Greta Van Fleet there. But he, in this song, for me, and this is one that's specific to the deluxe. It was not on the original album. But it's interesting because it helped me kind of articulate what we're talking about when we say someone's in denial. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that looks like. He's like, running stoplights, nothing matters. I'm doing all this stuff, my life doesn't matter. I'm going to get a tattoo, I can cover it up somehow. And I'm like, wait a minute, I do know people who get tattooed after breakups. I'm like, okay, so that's what's happening there. That's that denial process. And, he's like, I figured out that I can't outrun you. Talking about his ex. And even still, I have exes, and even still there are some things that you're like, parts of your life that are just attached to these relationships. You're like, oh, I can't actually outrun it. I just have to accept that is a part of my life that is over. And there's good and terrible memories with some of those past relationships, right? So that was interesting that was a fun addition to song. I wish it was on the original. Actually, I guess that doesn't really matter because I will have the deluxe. I'm planning on getting the deluxe vinyl because it's all the different vinyl discs are different colors. So just the Process album is not rainbow, but all these cool techno kind of colors. That's what happens with the actual disc on the vinyl set. So that's pretty sick. Okay, going on to the next section of songs. After Denial, we have Anger. So that goes into Floating in the Night. Floating in the Night's another one of those fun ones of just kind of being lost. He's like, the anger was fun for a season. He goes, getting angry or starting fights with my friends for no reason. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, that's it. And sometimes you're like, wait a minute, why did I do that? So again, really relatable. Love how he has that kind of like part of the song he's going through. Floating in the Night's a really good one. For me, the biggest FU energy, if you will, of any of the songs, because most of these songs are not like, Taylor Swift, when she burns her exes, she burns them. For the most part, he doesn't really do that. Even in the anger section, like he's like, I'm upset about what happened. He even talks about how he wishes he punched the guy she cheated with in the face. He says him in the face. You don't really know that she cheated yet in this album if you're listening sequentially, but that is what happened. So you're like, oh, okay. But what's fun is he gets to the one song is Great Decisions. I love this song. And he goes, well, that's one of the ones I wanted to sample. So we can go ahead and go over there and hear a little bit. So here's the part that for me really hits. I love this line. It's so much fun. If you like being angry, it's so much fun. Yeah, I love that. He's very sarcastic. And all throughout the song, he's like, I know I'm going to be okay after some time. And he's like, I hope you're going to be okay after some days. And then he throws in those great decisions you made. So a lot of fun, getting that little bit of anger in there, but still kind of wishing her well. So it's like, how angry you really consider? I don't know. But then after Great Decisions, you have Son of a Gun. Also a really fun song. All right. So after Son of a Gun, we get into Bargaining. So in the bargaining section, we have Bargaining, Starting Over. And that one for me was the one I really related to. It's like all the stuff we got for our apartment, all the clothes we got from one another, you starting over, getting rid of the stuff. And that's something, if you date someone for a long time, can be a really long process. You still have, I still think I have one shirt that an ex got me that I'm like, oh, do I get rid of this? Because I like the shirt, but I don't want to be thinking about an ex all the time. I'm married. I don't want that in my life. So you have that kind of stuff. Really related to me. Body and Soul, that's another one that was added in the deluxe. For me, just didn't really hit. It Is What It Is. Again, one of the catchiest songs that they have in the album. It is what it is, what it is. For me, I like it because he's like, it doesn't really matter what you wanted. It is what it is. He's like, what I wanted doesn't matter. What you want doesn't matter. I tried to change it, but I can't. And it is what it is. And when you think about it, like that's a good attitude. But when you think about the context, what we get later. So this album really hits better when you listen more than once. When he reveals that she cheated on him, you're like, wait a minute. I did what it is. Nah, man. I'm like, that's not me. For me, I can't imagine everything. Like, it is what it is. No, she cheated. Screw her. Even when I'm not mad anymore, screw that person, right? Like, him, he's like, it is what it is. And that's the first hint for me where I was like, oh, this guy might be a better Christian than me. And as you go through, I'm like, I get more and more convinced as time goes on that he might be a better Christian than me. But that's the end of the bargaining one. Then we get into Depression. First song on that is another new one added to the deluxe, Sad Eyes. To me, this song wasn't really it. I didn't love it. It's very slow, but not very catchy for me. And usually I like a good, slow, sad song, but I don't know. It does fit the album really well, though. Sometimes you have to have those like downs in the album, so like the ups really hit better. So I like get your up and downs. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't really know music, but for me, I do think it adds to the overall album. It doesn't really take away, but it's not my favorite. Self-Inflicted Wounds. Oh, that one hurt for me because this one he's like, it's like his confessional. He talks about all the stuff that he did wrong. And mind you, once you've listened to her once, I'm listening to this now and I'm like, wait a minute, but she cheated. He's like, yeah, it's easy to blame you. Hurt people. What did I do? He's like, I did this. I messed up here. And he's really down on himself. You're like, wait, dude, no, let's go back to anger. Someone who's objective in there, like, I'm not going through a breakup. I'm like, wait a minute, let's go back to anger. Why are you sad about this? Why are you blaming yourself? And it's like, no, but he sees that he really did make some mistakes. He really is at fault too. And that's that, again, building on that, this guy might be more mature than me. He might be a better Christian than me. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking at. I'm like, oh, man, yeah. This is an album, I think, if listening through, if you're able to relate to him as well as I do, you're like, man, challenges you to grow. So self-inflicted wounds, big one for me. SIS is what's next. I love this song. It's Suffer in Silence, SIS, but it's also a play on the SIS, which is like the UK FBI kind of thing. I don't know. It's a European Secret Service. So SIS, play on words there, but Suffering in Silence. He's just talking about how like he doesn't want to let people know what's going on. He doesn't want to like be open. He doesn't want to tell her that she's hurt because he's like, yeah, I'd rather suffer in silence than you guys know that I'm hurt. But there's a line in this song when his brother is addressing him. I don't know if it's like his real brother, or like his brother in Christ, or his friend who's like a brother. But I love this because it reminds me of me and my brother. This is definitely something I could hear my brother saying. It's something I could hear myself saying to my brother. I loved this line. So again, we're going to sample another section here. Hopefully you guys enjoy this as much as I do. I love this line. It's really great.
Don't underestimate these feelings you got coming up. Don't give them too much credit. They'll start to lie when they want, and when the tough gets going, might as well go and get tough.
All right, this is the part I was talking about. Sorry. This is the part I was talking about.
You my brother, if you don't got me, then who do you got? You're not a burden. I'm glad to know, 'cause it seems like a lot. I swear to God, my heart's breaking with you right where you are. If I could, you know I would call straight through the phone and punch your face, 'cause you know that you're never alone. And then I cried, I wiped my eyes, said I was coming home.
Yeah, that for me, great. Not only is it just great music, like I like the vibe, I like the feeling of the music, but also, yeah, man, that's totally what I say about it. Like, dude, if I could crawl through this phone and just punch you in the face because you know you're not alone. Like, yeah, man, come on, shut up. But yeah, like we all feel that, like, oh, I feel alone. But like for me and my brother, like that's like how we comfort each other. Like, dude, shut up. You know, for me, that's so relatable. I'm like, oh yeah. Again, it's just one of those connection points for me where I'm really connecting to what's going on, what he's feeling, what he's like walking us through in this. It's a great song, a lot of fun. The next one, and it's weird to me that this is in Depression. And again, this is before we know the first time you listen through that he was cheated on. The next song is Wish You the Best. It's like, I genuinely wish the best. I only want the best for you. I only want the best. That's the name of the song. It's like, I only want the best. I only want the best for you. And near the end, he's breaking up. Like he breaks up. He's like, listen, I know I made mistakes too. And I'm not happy with everything that happened. And I wish we wouldn't have broke up. But right now, I want you to know that I only want the best for you. And that's another, like that for me, that was like the tipping point for me, like where I completely broke. I was already kind of feeling like, oh, maybe he's a better Christian. Maybe he's more mature. But for me, relating to this, I'm like, oh, crap. Could I look at someone who had done what was done to him to me and say, I only want the best for you? God, that is the heart of Christ. Like he's not saying like, this is what Christians should do. He's not saying, no, this is what you should do. He's like, this is what he did. And I'm like, man, that's the heart of Christ, right? Like not only to someone who's hurt you in a romantic relationship, but any relationship. I only want the best for you. Yeah, you screwed me over. Yeah, we had these big fight. Yeah, this stuff happened. And for most people, this would be completely irreconcilable. We'd hate each other forever. But here he is saying, no, I only want the best for you. That's all. Like, oh man, for me, that's such a challenge. I was so convicted. I'm like, dude, could I sit here? There's still people in my life. I'm like, have I really forgiven them to the point that I could look them in the face and say, I only want the best for you? And I'm not sure. There's people I'm really not sure I'd be able to say that about. So for me, that was really challenging, really convicting. I'm like, I got to pray, man. I got to get on my knees. He's talking about getting on his knees, praying for her. And I'm like, oh, I got to get on my knees and pray for myself because I don't know if I have that kind of forgiveness in me. I don't know if I have that kind of love in me where I could look at someone who did me that wrong and say, I only want the best for you. I think I'm getting there. You know, I'm growing in Christ every day. I'm growing in maturity every day, but I don't think I'm there yet. So again, right after that other song where it relates to me, and I'm like, oh, me and my brother could hear us talking like that. And then he hits us with this. And I'm like, oh, I related with you a second ago. And now I'm like, I'm not there yet, but I want to be. All right. That was the end of Depression. Then we go into Acceptance. And the first song in Acceptance, this is what I was like, oh, okay. So if you know some Christian stuff, you know, like Christian aesthetic, like aesthetic theology kind of stuff, you're like, wait a minute. You should be familiar with the poem Long Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross. And I actually wanted to read a couple of verses from that. So I'm actually going to share my screen again. I'm doing a lot of screen sharing. Hopefully you guys won't see anything you're not supposed to see. I don't know. But I want to read verse 5 and then the last verse of this poem by St. John of the Cross. O guiding night, O night, more lovely than the dawn, O night that has united the lover with his beloved and changed her into her love. And then here, the last verse, verse 8 of this poem. I continued in oblivion lost. My head was resting on my love, lost to all things and myself, and amid the lilies forgotten, threw my cares away. Man, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. That poem. It's something that's shaped Christianity and even modern culture. You hear lots of people use that phrase, long dark night of the soul, and it's from this poem. Christian circles usually hear it more, and it's usually talking about how your trials actually bring you closer to God. And that's also biblical. In biblical theology, if you look at the book of James, James talks about how our trial strengthens our faith. So we know that these dark nights, that these hard times strengthen our faith. And maybe if I went through something as hard as he did, it would actually strengthen my faith to where I could say some of the things he's saying in this album, right? But he's referencing in the very song title, Long Dark Night of the Soul, he's referencing this where he's like, hey, in my darkest time, in my hardest time, in my trials, I grew and I learned to love more. And I rested amidst the lilies forgotten. I let my cares go. I've accepted it. Man, it's deep. It's hard. It's challenging. And it's just beautiful to me. And yeah, I'm gonna sit on this song for a while because for me, this is the Christian song. You know, none of them are Christian songs, but this is the Christian song to me. I know I'm gonna play another sample from that song here. This is the last one I'll be doing, but it's challenging, and I think it's something everyone should listen to this song at least. If you're not gonna listen to the whole album, at least listen to this song.
I came back from hell with stories to tell. Wish my demons well. They're crying in their cells. I've got my mistakes. The prices I paid. Oh, let do you go when you feel all alone. Oh, it's the long dark night of the soul. Where you find the light.
That's where he finds the light in the long dark night. And I was like, oh man, I love that. He's like, I've been down to hell and I have stories to tell. Demons are crying in their cells because what? He didn't let his demons win. In the long dark night, what was there? Not the devil. The devil wasn't there waiting for him in the night. Christ alone. You know, there's a song I like by the Porter's Gate Collective. That's Christ was lower still. It's like, oh, in my darkest night, that's where I found him because Jesus is there. And that's where I love the story of the harrowing to hell. Now, not everyone believes in this. It's in some of the creeds, but it's not technically in the Bible, though I think it is alluded to that on Holy Saturday, so Good Friday, Christ dies. Saturday, before he raises again, Christ goes down to hell, sets those free, and come up again on Sunday, Easter Sunday. And I love that story, that Christ went to hell. He defeated not only the grave, but hell in the grave. He defeated hell itself. I love that story because no matter where, no matter how dark things get, no matter how bad things get, no matter if you have literally gone down to hell, Christ has been there. Christ is with you in the darkest night. Your demons don't win. Jesus does. Man. And he doesn't say Jesus. He doesn't say Christ, but I'm like, he's invoking this poem, this Christian poem of St. John of the Cross. And he's invoking like all this stuff. And he's talking about how he had the darkest time. He was cheated on all the stuff he went through. And he said, that's where I found the light. And another verse in this song that I love, he says, it's 6 feet down where you got to go to find the light. I'm like, 6 feet down where you got, like, he's talking about dying to yourself, like literally the Christian doctrine of dying to yourself so that you may live in Christ. He doesn't say live in Christ. He just talks about dying to yourself, though. He says 6 feet down is where you got to go. I'm like, man, so profoundly Christian without ever having to quote a verse, without ever having to say Jesus, 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 love Jesus, without any of that stuff that you see in a lot of modern Christian songs that I get sick of and I hate. It's a beautiful song, beautiful melody, deep poetic words that reach down to my very soul, challenge me to my core, make me think, man, can I rely on Christ for this? If I went through this trial, would I come out being able to say, I only want the best? This album as a whole is so challenging, but this song in particular is what brings it all together for me, where I'm like, oh, hot dog, I don't know if I'm there, but I want to be. I don't want to have that dark night of the soul that he had, but I know trials strengthen our faith, and I know that that's the kind of faith, that's the kind of love I want to have for others, where no matter what they do to me, I can look them in the face and say, I only want the best. Sorry, I'm not going to speak in tongues about this secular album, but I might get close. For me, that was just it's a song. Next is another one from the Deluxe editions is What a Time to Be Alive. It's a lot of fun. He's talking about going through COVID, going through all the stuff he's gone through. He's not even 35. What a time to be alive. I did enjoy it. After that is Heart Medicine. I will say this is probably my favorite song on its own, but I also don't quite understand how it fits into with a lot of the other album, personally. Because what's happening is he talks about how he thought he'd never love again. He swore he'd never find someone else, but then he did find someone else. And it's just like medicine being injected into his veins. It's like, it's heart medicine. Your love is like heart medicine. And I mean, beautiful words. Like, it's fun. It's not as deep as the rest of the stuff. It doesn't quite fit for me right where it is in the album. But man, if I'm listening on my own, if I just like was to add a song to my love songs, yeah, man, like Heart Medicine. It's the catchy song. It's the most fun song. It's one of those that I listen to the car with the windows down, belting out because I have so much fun with it. But again, I'm just not sure how it fits. So I love it. It might be my favorite song on the album even, but not as deep as some of the other ones. And I'm just not sure if it fits as well. Next is Leave It Better Than You Found It. I love that too. It's not just relationships. It's this world that we're in. We have to leave the world better than we found it. What are we doing to add to the world? Good song. Measure of a Man is another one that was added in the Deluxe. To me, this is one of the better ones that was added. He's like, what will I be measured by in the end? Will it be, the times that I did these terrible stuff to you? Will it be that I forgave? Will it be that I loved? Will it be that I hated? Will it be like, what is it that I will be measured by? And at one point he even says, when I become a man, well, I'll be ashamed of the kid I've been. And for him to talk about that, and like, to me, I'm like, man, you're so mature in this album. I don't know. What do you mean you're still growing? So that was a big one. And then the final song in the album that I think belongs here, it's a beautiful ending, Sweet Surrender. How great and how beautiful it is. How sweet of a surrender it is. So just let it go. Let go of the hate. Let go of the anger. Let go of the depression. He's accepted it. He has surrendered. He has surrendered himself. He's died to himself. It's 6 feet down where you got to go, right? And he's accepted. He wishes her the best. He only wants the best for her at this point. And he says, and I don't remember what song it is. This might not be in this one, but he says, you have your version of the story. Now I have mine too. That's also an only want the best, because after he says that line, it's I only want the best for you. So that's where that is. But man, yeah, what he been through, I don't know if I can say you have your version of the story. No, screw you, right? But no, he went through that long dark night of the soul. He went through this trial. His faith was made stronger. His love was made deeper. Man, what an album! What a story, and what a challenge. For me personally, I don't know about you guys. If you guys are just as challenged as me, I just think it's a beautiful thing. And I mentioned I was going to compare it to some of the Taylor Swift stuff. I think it is comparable. I love Taylor Swift songs. Some of those breakup songs are just fun to scream in your car because you're like, yeah, screw that person. All those great decisions you made. But and she does also have where she found somewhere else where she's moved on, where she still she sees the children of her ex. That's in like Folklore, some of that stuff. But I don't think you ever get to this point of like, I only want the best for you. I only get to this point of like, I had this long dark night of the soul. I hit my knees 6 feet down, surrendered, died to myself so that I could love better. Like, you don't get that kind of stuff in Taylor Swift. I love Taylor Swift, but for me, this is a better one because it's not just letting me get my anger out. And sometimes you need to vent. I get that. Yeah. Taylor Swift's there for me when I want to vent. I love her for it. Thank you, T Swift. But this for me, it's an album of healing. And that's where, like, even though I'm not going through a divorce, the healing, the power, the joy that's in this music is something that I resonate with deeply, that I want to completely have in my earbuds at all times. Where I'm like, yeah, let's heal. Let's have this good, joyful energy, this challenging music at the same time lyrically. So you have this joy and love and challenging lyrics. For me, yeah, if I had to pick an album of the year, it's probably going to be this one. Again, really hoping to get the Deluxe on vinyl, the vinyls with all the different colors. Maybe one day I'll find them, get it signed. That's my goal. That's my dream. Geeking out on this stuff. I'm geeking out big on this album, and I hope you guys will listen yourself and enjoy it. Personally. So as far as things go, like, this is going to be, for most people, their most popular album. Judah Lion's pretty niche. I don't think it's going to be as big, but I do think just because lyrically what it is, for me, it's going to hold up. For me, this is something I feel like I'll be listening to years to come because of how deep it is and how fun the music is, how catchy some of the songs are. I think this will just always be in my repertoire as far as like music I listen to. So and some of the new Taylor Swift and other songs probably won't be, because they come out with new albums. I'll listen to the new one and forget about some of the old stuff. But this is one I could see really sticking with me for some time. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. As far as things go, if you want like the catchy song, Heart Medicine, check it out. It's a really fun song, really catchy. So if I had to pick one for you that's just like catchy and fun, picking that one. The deepest one's going to be that Long Dark Night of the Soul, and that's, if you go to the Judah Lion YouTube page, that's the first video you'll see, and I think for good reason. I don't know. Check it out. Let me know what you guys think. Remember, again, rate and review this show, especially right now. This is launch day. We need those rates. We need those reviews. So everybody's like, oh, what's going on with this show? What is this? What's going on? So do that. Share it. Let people know about our new show coming out on the Honest Owl Podcast Network. And, of course, hit subscribe. We need those subscriptions. This is a new show. It's important to have all those things, especially now. So please help us out with that. We would really appreciate it. And we hope that you can join us and continuing to find more music that we can sing along to, and to just keep making joyful noises together. Until next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Some Joyful Noises, a proud member of the Anazal Podcast Network. You can listen to other Anazal podcasts with the link that's down below in this show's description. If you have ideas for this show or would like to lead one of these episodes, then you can email us at anazalministriespodcast@gmail.com and pitch an idea to us, and we'll talk about it and see whether or not we can make it work for you to lead your own episode. We hope to hear from you soon, and that you'll help us keep it noisy. This is the launch week for our podcast, Some Joyful Noises. The two most important things for a successful podcast is, one, reliability and consistency. And then number two is the best first foot forward that you can put. Since this show has no plan and no schedule, we're going to drop the ball on consistency. That means it's extra important that we have a good first foot forward, and we're asking for your help. There's a few things you can do that'll take less than 5 minutes and cost you absolutely nothing that can help our show put our first foot forward. So here's 5 things that will take you less than 5 minutes to do for no cost that would help us. Number 1, share the show. Find a friend, share the show with someone. Number 2, rate and review our show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Number 3, go to podchaser.com and rate and review the show there. Number 4, join our Facebook group, Some Joyful Noises. And then, of course, number 5 is just enjoy the show. Be sure to subscribe, and if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can go to the menu of our podcast to select automatic download. That'll help increase our downloads and tell the algorithms that this show's really important. All of these are also going to be down below in the description in case you forget any. Thank you all again so much, and we hope you enjoy the show.